Badlands, running to Badlands. Explain those Badlands. That's a hell of a name.
Hello, everybody. I'm very happy to be joined once again by Ghost of Based Patrick Henry, and we've got a lot to talk about. We're not in World War III yet, so that's a positive. But there's a lot of moving parts, to say the least, currently that we're gonna unravel, shed some light on. How are you doing, Gordon?
I'm good, man. I'm good. How are you?
Cool. I'm okay. I'm overdosing on trying to stay up to date on news feeds. And we're at such a cataclysmic, turbulent moment potentially in world history that any 15-minute period could involve some action that could completely alter for bad or worse human civilization and condemn future generations to real injustice in ways that we can't even imagine. So I've been trying to just stay on top of things, and I know you've been doing the same thing too. So we're gonna share a few of our thoughts and considerations about some of the pressing strategic points to talk about that we hope other people watching today will find value in. But before we do any of that stuff, like usual, we got a sponsor today. Actually, the first sponsor today is Badlands. It's a bit of a cheat. So let me just run the first ad featuring some Badlands merch. So 1 second here. Okay, Badlanders, unleash your passion with Badlands media merch. Dive into warm weather with Badlands-themed games and sporting goods, from ping pong balls to golf balls, hockey pucks and frisbees, and even Badlands pickleball set. I don't know what pickleball is. Huh. Sip your favorite brew, whether it's coffee, hops, or whatever thirst, all while making a statement. Think rugged tumblers, sleek coffee mugs, beer steins, okay, whiskey glasses, and more. Car accessories, from vanity plates to car magnets to tech gear, to let rep Badlands everywhere you go. It's not just t-shirts and hats. Our store is bursting with bold, high-quality gear to fuel your summer vibe. Check out these Badlanders rocking their gear. Join the crew. Head to badlandsmedia.tv/merch, grab your official Badlands merch, and spread the word loud and proud. Be sure to tag Badlands if you post a selfie on social media so that we can say hi. Let's see how far we can reach together. That's badlandsmedia.tv/merch. Okay. I may be a little bit too slow.
I recognize a lot of those people in those pictures. Those are friends of ours from GART.
I haven't actually watched the ad because I have to go to another window to read.
Exactly.
So I don't the ad showing.
You would recognize at least a few of them from Plymouth. So,
okay, cool. All right, sweet, man. So look, we got a lot of developments going on. It's difficult to even decide which thread to pull on first, frankly. There is, just so much. I guess maybe one thing I would start with and get your thoughts on, Mike Pompeo. A few days ago, I'm sure you've seen this. You've probably addressed it in your other shows. He made a statement on Fox News warning of Iranian terrorist cells. So there's so many fallacies in what this much healthier looking Mike Pompeo.
Skinny Pompeo is what I call him, and I do not trust skinny. I like fat Pompeo. Fat Pompeo is jovial. He smiles a lot. He's like the fun uncle.
Yeah.
Skinny Pompeo is a total G-man. And he's like the guy who comes in the suit and the sunglasses to, kidnap your dog and scare the shit out of you. And do
absolutely. And let's let the viewers actually get an experience of creepy thin Pompeo in action, spreading
Ozempic Pompeo. Maybe Ozempic Pompeo, yeah.
Ozempic Peo. Okay, here we are.
Careful who you are around in terms of large events, Jewish events. I mean, this sounds like we've gone backwards decades in terms of the threat on Jewish lives. But that's exactly what this is also about.
Harris, I actually think it's just the converse of that. I do agree this could be a very high tension, stressful, and indeed there may be an event somewhere in the world. It's not just the missiles or drones they'll fly to Israel, but The Iranian IRGC, the very leadership the Israelis destroyed last night, has been working in nearly every country around the world, including the United States of America, to plant little terror cells all across the world. Hezbollah was doing the same. So this will be a very difficult period. But in the end, this was not a reckless attack, but indeed what they did was decent and just and righteous, and will reduce risk to the Jewish diaspora around the world. And for Israel and for the United States of America, a really good set of outcomes are in the offing, so long as Israel is prepared to finish the task, and as long as the world unites to provide continued deterrence and defense to prevent Iran from conducting all kinds of attacks. I think of cyber threats that will probably be projected around the world too. Iranians have a great cyber program. So lots of vectors for them to respond. We all need to be alert and responsive and do everything we can to deter them from coming after any American, anywhere, in any field.
Okay, enough of that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, do you think, based on what you just said,
I have not seen, and pardon my French, but I have not seen him looking that skinny. I've seen the skinny Pompeo. That is the skinniest Pompeo I've seen to date. He's like a beanpole.
Yeah,
that's Ozempic Pompeo. You have fat Pompeo, you have skinny Pompeo, and then you have Ozempic Pompeo, and that is Ozempic Pompeo. And not only that, but he has like the Donald Trump tan. Like it's like he's like Orange Man bad now. That's amazing. Obviously, he's like positioning himself to run for president. I think that's probably that was the speculation when he first dropped the weight before. Just can't trust a guy who just drops the weight like that overnight. You know, I just what happened to Fat Pompeo, man?
No, I couldn't concur more. Absolutely, he's trying way too hard.
Yeah. Try less. All right, try less, Mike. You're doing too much.
You look like a more authentic person if people see that you're not. Try to put out a brand. But that being said, there are a lot of fallacies in what he said, and I mean, in my mind, he's saying what Israel has done. I think he gave that little toxic oration back on Friday, right after the first wave of Israeli strikes, and he described the strikes as good, as just, as righteous. He said that they're going to reduce the threat, the danger to Jews everywhere around the world now that Israel is going on this long-awaited assault onto their top trophy. Finally, this is going to reduce the danger to the Jewish diaspora and Israel itself as a state. Is that true? And also, do you think that what he's calling for by warning of these Iranian terrorist cells that have been built up all around the free world, waiting to spark and launch a cyber attack or other types of attacks, is this kind of an admission that they're planning a false flag pretty soon, that they're probably going to try to blame on Iran, or some combination of Iran and China, or Iran, China, and Russia?
For sure. And I mean, like anytime they warn about this stuff, it's definitely like projection. It's an admission. You've had a lot of like former CIA agents, officers going on different podcasts the past few months, warning people that Al-Qaeda's back with a vengeance. And Al-Qaeda, there was that one chick, Sarah something. She went on Sean Ryan's show and she said, that they are, she more recently went on Liz Wheeler's show. Liz Wheeler, I'm not really that familiar with. She was one of the people who was invited to the White House and given the Epstein binder that really was a nothing burger. Everyone who was a part of that op is very suspect in my opinion. And Liz Wheeler had her on and she was talking about, well, actually, you know what? Let me just pull it up. I think I actually have that. Let me see. Ash, send it to me. Yep, here it is. Just hold on one second. And then I can pull it up right here. Uploading. Yeah, so let's watch this clip because what she says here is such a tell. This was like right after Trump's she went on the Sean Ryan show like a month before Trump went to the Middle East and did this whole like remember everybody, like Al-Qaeda did 9/11, the Saudis funded it, like we can't trust the Arabs, those damn brown people over there, we just got to kill them all, remember they hate you, don't forget about like Muhammad, what is it, Allah Akbar, like don't forget about that, guys, remember, like the Crusades, remember.
And who is this woman?
You'll see right here. She
okay.
Then like right after Trump went, this was in May, like right after Trump went to the Middle East, she then went on Liz Wheeler's show and said this.
Makes the people is we kept hearing about them, but Al-Qaeda made a strategic error. And in early November, they took these vests and showed them off in a few terrorist camps in Afghanistan. And that's when it became real, because, okay, these vests are real. They're showing them off. They're saying the terrorists that they're for, the U.S. plot. And so when that happened, that's then when we at least started telling the public, right? We obviously had told CIA about it. We got no response. We gave the details on the vest to FBI and asked them to disseminate them to TSA, the air marshals, and the airlines, and they didn't do that. So that's then when we started talking about it publicly to at least get other people engaged to hopefully on the ground levels start doing things. Even when I was in the airport, I want to say 3 months ago, I was actually pulled aside by a TSA employee, and he said, "We're a big fan of you. Keep talking, because you're the only one that's going to force our leadership to help deal with these vests." I mean, think about that.
Have you ever seen a human being lie like more blatantly than what she was just lying right there? First of all, like let's just unpack what she just said. She said that Al-Qaeda is running terrorist camps in Afghanistan. Does Al-Qaeda operate in Afghanistan? Last time I checked, that was the Taliban's territory, right? Doesn't Al-Qaeda operate like Iraq, Syria, like Arabia? Like aren't they supposed to be like an Arab outfit? I mean, correct me if I'm wrong here, but
good point. Very good point. Yeah.
So she starts there, and then she says that at the airport, like as if anybody knows who the hell this woman is. I mean, I've seen her multiple clips of her, and I still can't remember her name. Like her name's Sarah something. TSA employees were coming up to her and saying, "Thank you for spreading the word," like as if people know who the hell she is and would recognize her in the airport. It's just it's so pathetic. It's so like perverse, man. It's hard to watch, honestly. But the fact that they're doing,
and I didn't quite catch, who is she? Like, what is her claim to fame, if any?
She's a former, like literally, she's a former CIA agent. That's what she said. And let me see if I can. I can probably track down exactly who she is. It
doesn't matter.
Yeah, Sarah on Sean Ryan. Sean Ryan, to his credit, because I've had issues with Sean Ryan, like the stuff he's put out. He did come out and say that like he was against the idea of anything going on with Iran. He's like, this is all like BS.
Yeah, I noticed that too. I've been pretty underwhelmed, I gotta say, and unimpressed overall by Sean Ryan's general worldview. There's so many flaws and fallacies that this guy puts out there, but I was happy to see at least that statement that he made, saying he doesn't want to have any part in this particular war that's being trucked out onto Iran. So that's good.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So her name is Sarah Adams, and apparently her claim to fame is that she authored a book called Benghazi Know Thy Enemy, where her and another CIA agent did like an OSINT, like open source intelligence drop on the Benghazi attacks, right? So basically like, whitewashing the whole thing, and here's the CIA spin on it. So that's her claim to fame, apparently.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, and then her pinned tweet, of course, this is actually laugh out loud funny. I kind of need to show this now. I'm sorry, this is just kind of turning into like a Mean Girls session, but let's see. Her pinned tweet just makes me laugh so hard. Pinned tweet is Israel may have just eliminated Mohammed Kazemi, the top IRGC operative supporting Al-Qaeda's upcoming U.S. homeland plot, aka 9/11 2.0. In the past, Kazemi was personally tasked by IRGC, like whatever. The rest is kind of irrelevant. She's saying that the IRGC is supporting Al-Qaeda's upcoming U.S. homeland plot, aka 9/11 2.0. So the CIA, she's telling us the CIA knows that there's going to be another 9/11, and they're not like doing anything about it. They're just kind of letting it run. This is such bullshit, dude. It's so pathetic to watch these people operate. And I want to actually address, I want to remind everybody that what's her name? Whoever was speaking to Pompeo. Remember when she did this back in like 2021? Watch this.
Overwhelmingly elected with George Soros and anti-police. Progressive district attorneys are anti-police, pro-criminal, and overwhelmingly elected with George Soros's money, and they're a major cause of the violence we're seeing because they keep putting the violent criminals back on the street.
I'm not sure we need to bring
You'll
George
get the
Soros
last.
into this.
Yeah. I don't think we need to bring George Soros into this. And then Newt Gingrich's response was like, why not? Like, he's paying for it. Like, why wouldn't we name the people who are funding all of this? Like, funding the Summer of Love, funding the. And she's like, no. She's like, let's not be anti-Semitic here. Like, let's not talk about George Soros. And
That's
it's like, okay.
very revealing.
Okay, what's her name? Faulkner, like Falker or whatever.
I forget.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, she's a big.
She's a
Fox
shill.
News
She's a shill. A Fox News, diaspora, Mossad paid shill. I mean that's my opinion. I don't know if she really is, but that's what. She's a mouthpiece for the deep state. I mean, that's such nonsense.
Well, I'm a bit surprised because I thought, if anything, like Soros is kind of low-hanging fruit. He makes for a nice boogeyman to organize the conservative right. And if anything, I thought he was like still safe to attack from any host on Fox News. But no, apparently not. That's not the case at all. And
well, now he is like now, like this was 4 or 5 years ago. 4 or 5 years ago, when Newt Gingrich said that in passing, she was like, "Whoa, like can't talk about Soros." Now Soros, I think, is just everyone understands what he is, but kind of shows how far we've come since then. But I mean, so I view Soros and Netanyahu as two sides of the same coin, and like two. They're basically like the left foot and the right foot of like walking.
I see the same thing. Yeah. No, I see the exact same thing. They seem to be guided by a very similar agency that would like to create hate absorbers for many of the population in any time of cataclysmic crisis that's been pre-programmed into the system. You can foresee that there will be people waking up to the arsonists. And so there's sort of like a science of prepping disposable, useful jackasses who have been used in the mechanisms of evil to absorb that hate, while the actual agencies who are causal remain several layers, several degrees of separation removed from those like Soros or Netanyahu, who clearly are not their own men. I mean, Soros himself, like, he's evil. Sure, I get it, but at the same time, it's like he got his funding, or he got his start, recruited as a young sociopath, having demonstrated that he had what it took when he was working with the Nazis, helping to load Jewish families onto, train cars to send them off into camps and confiscating their property. Which he called the best time of his life in that infamous 1997 interview, or
which never aired, by the way. The interview never aired. And the only reason it ever reached the internet is because somebody who worked at 60 Minutes like loaded it onto the internet. It's like that's the only reason I ever saw it.
But yeah, it was very revealing, and like in that. It was like a reminder of this guy's general lack of any conscience that was groomed out of him. But then coming out of that, he showed such talent that he got a scholarship to the London School of Economics, and he got to train directly under Karl Popper, the founder of the Open Society ideology, and also a member of the Mont Pelerin Institute. That's sort of a pseudo-Fabian Society front group, which was promoting a lot of the it was run by people like Walter Lippmann, Fabian socialist guy who was a major controller of the Council on Foreign Relations in America. At the same time as the socialist is part of this thing, you've got other founding members like von Hayek, Friedrich von Hayek, who's another founding member along with Lippmann, who's seemingly representing the right-wing, Austrian school, complete polar opposite, but they're working together in setting up things like the Mont Pelerin Society, that Karl Popper is also a founding member of that agency that Soros is being groomed by to get a handle on how the formula for global control works. And as soon as he goes through that processing, he's given an endowment by Evelyn de Rothschild in 1968 to set up the world's first, hedge fund, to be one of the early mercenaries of the new war against the nation state, utilizing like speculative warfare, like speculation against commodities, against currencies that would now be used not to invest it, which was why originally speculation is just like it came as a branch of legitimate investing. on, something that you thought was going to have value, that you would have, I think that this idea for this company is good. I'm gonna invest in their stocks because I'm gonna gamble on the fact that they're gonna be able to produce something of value in society, which is a legitimate activity. And then under the age of deregulation, which these creatures oversaw, all of a sudden it became a tool to speculate against the currency of a nation, against oil prices that would be tied to the value of the dollar. That could then create turmoil, chaos, as Soros had done for decades now, destroying countries who are not obedient to the edicts of global governance. So this guy's complete shill. And yeah, like, he's funded open society foundations to provide humanitarian aid to anybody who wants to overturn their government under the veil of democracy and human rights. And yeah, not a big surprise, he funds all of these agencies in America to, like, Antifa and Black Lives Matter and other things that are being used to overthrow the U.S. government, as well as others. Big surprise. But at the end of the day, he's not a causal agency behind anything. That being said, back to your point, I find it fascinating that at the time, at least, Fox News was still shilling and running protection for him at that point. So yeah, very fascinating.
A few points to make. It's worth noting that when Putin first came into power, he went after Soros, and within 3 years of becoming president in 2003, the Open Societies Foundation shut down their offices in Russia and never returned. And then they became the poster child for a wave of legislation over the next 12 years, culminating, I think, in 2015, where explicitly, like, groups like Open Societies Foundation were banned from Russia, and Open Societies and Soros were used as, like, the standard bearer. Like, this is why we don't allow these NGOs in our country, because here's what they do. They overthrow, they destabilize nations, they manipulate currency markets, and they cause mass chaos. So, the fact that Fox News hates Putin and also simps for George Soros is not a coincidence, in my opinion. Also simps for Bibi Netanyahu, because Bibi Netanyahu, even though Soros and Netanyahu are like Soros he's not anti-Israel. He's always said, I'm not anti-Israel. I'm just sympathetic to the Arab cause. That's what he says. Okay. And so people are like, oh, bleeding heart. Like, oh, he must be such a nice man to stand up for the Arabs against the Zionists. No, what he does is he funds the organizations that are corrupting the Arab cultures. And then when Netanyahu, let me share my screen. 2011, they do the Arab Spring. They kill Gaddafi. They take over Libya. They turn Libya into a total, like, third world just cesspool. Libya then becomes the launching point for invading Greece and invading Italy by all these, like, migrants, like, huge migrant crisis. Pivot over to Syria, the Syrian civil war. All the weapons come out of Libya. They're taken to Cyprus. They're taken to Turkey. They're walked into Syria. They're given to all these rebel groups. The rebel groups are all united under one flag, ISIS, and then they try to overthrow Assad. Which
Christopher Stevens was trying to blow the whistle on as well before he was killed in Benghazi, right?
Good point. And then that destabilizes this entire region over here, the Middle East. And who is there to help all of the people? And all of this, by the way, being orchestrated by Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, but I think ultimately Bibi Netanyahu and the people that he represents. We can see the results of the net results of their fine work now. Like, we can see that the ambition was to annex all these territories. Then you have Open Societies and all these other Soros cutouts sitting there waiting to help these people who have lost their homes, who no longer feel safe in where they're from, getting on buses, getting on planes, flying to Europe, flying to the United States, and that's the migrant crisis. And so Netanyahu destabilizes the areas, and then Soros ships the people out to the from the third world or the second world to the first world, to the West, to Europe, where cultures clash, cultures that are not meant to assimilate, that are not ready for assimilation. Two things happen when two cultures meet. They either assimilate and trade and engage in prosperity, or they engage in conflict. And obviously, we've seen that. With the help of certain catalyzing events and narrative warfare and propaganda, and bad actors. Obviously, like the migrant wave and crisis has been used to destabilize Europe, destabilize the United States, destabilize the West.
You know, it's such a clear formula, eh? Like when you just run through it so simply the way you just did, it's not that complex. People get a little overwhelmed by the idea of asymmetrical warfare done in these types of ways, but it's really not that hard. And they've always kind of done it that way. Like this is not a new thing. And whenever you have, again, a systemic crisis, a real breakdown moment, people get their minds move more outside of the closed set of acceptable narratives to find out who's really destroying my future, and they want an enemy. Now, if you've got a wise population that knows how to use their minds and morals, they'll be able to find that enemy and act accordingly. However, generally speaking, that's not been the case for most of human history. And so the easiest type of scapegoat to give them is immigrants, others who are stealing your jobs. We saw this in the Great Depression. We've seen this in every moment of economic crisis in the 19th century, 17th century. You could blame this other social group who's now there. They're different than you. They don't speak your language, probably. They're not assimilating much. They're, you know, whether it's the Chinese that were getting lynched in the 19th century by a lot of, you know, Vanderbilt-funded propaganda that was convincing Americans that their life is shit because these Chinese who were brought in to build the railroads and do all of the dangerous work of dynamiting treacherous paths, they're the reason why the Americans don't have jobs in the 19th century. So there was like lynchings. It was crazy. The Jews obviously have been a very convenient scapegoat again and again and again, whether it was in Russia, Europe, the USA, London in the 1920s, all the way on, or in the Great Depression, right? It's the same thing. It's the Japanese, it's the whatever.
The Irish.
The Irish. Yeah.
The Irish were like the lowest man on the totem pole, the lowest of the low. In the 19th century.
Right. So it's just what Soros is doing is nothing new and just a little bit more complex. And the fact that he's definitely teeing off, it's part of the same thing that Benjamin Netanyahu is also playing into, who complains about the deep state. He complains about Soros's type of thing that wants to get him. So he puts that out there almost, again, like methinks thou doth protest too much. Like you're trying too hard to make this your nemesis. And at the same time, you're clearly working within the machinations of what Soros is a part of as well, to get a greater Israel agenda. Because who's going to benefit from all of these countries around Israel becoming destabilized and radicalized? It's ironically Netanyahu who thinks that he's going to benefit by taking advantage of the ungovernability of the adjacent nations in order to expand into them. Ironically making himself and all of the Jewish people that much closer to self-annihilation, which ironically I think also is kind of in the cards too, is the ritual sacrifice of the Jews themselves by getting this type of ideology, which radical Zionist and the Samson Option, like the Samson doctrine itself represents, to ultimately do something that will result in the ultimate self-annihilation of the Jewish people and the Jews. So that's been my hypothesis, and I'm seeing this kind of play out in a way, which makes me a little bit nervous.
I think that's absolutely right. I think to me, just looking at the tea leaves, I think that is the plan. I think the plan is to sacrifice Israel, right? Like the people who are. It doesn't mean they're not useful idiots. That doesn't mean that like guys like Pompeo aren't actually like ardent Zionists who think that Israel is the end all be all. Or Mike Huckabee would probably be a better example.
Or Lindsey Graham.
Or Lindsey Graham, right? I mean, some of those people are just responding to the financial incentives of what they're being, or blackmail incentives, whatever. But that same thing with the migrant crisis. The migrant crisis, it's like money laundering. Once you bring the people over, the people who are coming are just responding to incentive, right? They're just responding to, oh, my house is bombed, my neighborhood's destroyed, my family's dead, whatever. It's not safe to stay here. Here's a bus, prepared to take me to a better life. I'm getting on the bus. Oh, they're handing me cash. Oh, they're giving me a place to live. Like they're giving me an airplane ticket. Okay, right this way, right? So that's how you launder like the whole thing and make it seem like it is like just an earnest, unfortunate set of circumstances and a sequence of events. But it seems to me the end game is to sacrifice Israel, but to put Israel in a position where, number one, you have the most ardent psychopaths in charge of the country, which is what we have right now. I've spent the past year plus explaining that in detail. And then putting them in a position where they are facing an existential crisis. And because they have the Samson option, and for those who don't know what that is Israel's pledge to Seymour Hersh wrote a book about it decades ago. It's Israel's pledge that all of its allies are aware of, that if Israel is left to be destroyed, it will fire nukes, its nuclear arsenal, not only at its enemies, but at all of its allies as well, and take out every major capital in the West, including the United States, Europe, all of it. Everybody, if we're going to die, everybody's going to die with us, just like Samson and the Philistines in the biblical story. So that's has to be considered now too. Like, I think that is the plan from the Black Hat perspective, is get the psychopaths in power and then put them in a position where they're going to feel inclined to press the red button, whereas maybe less radicalized people, if they were in charge, wouldn't press the red button in time, and like they would hesitate, and then they wouldn't get a chance to do it. Whereas the psychopaths, if they feel like it's over, they're going to press the red button, and they're all going to, we're all going to go meet God now, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I think the end game is, and that's what I think Trump is facing. I think that's the bomb that has to be diffused, and it is designed with so many redundancies and so many fallback plans and so many like alternate options that it's not as simple as just like coming out and saying, here's what they're going to do, we need to stop it, because then everyone's going to spend years just arguing, is that actually true? Are they actually trying to do that? No one's going to believe it. It's like that's, so I think part of it is like drafting off the momentum of what is already set in place, the events that are already set in place, and then just applying pressure at the right opportune moment, the right bottlenecks, having the right people in place to just give it a nudge one way or the other. And the momentum and inertia will derail the whole thing and lead it into a different, like a different timeline, so to speak. That's what I hope we're up against. That's what I think we're up against. I can pivot us to, I think, like the Netanyahu discussion here.
Okay.
So last,
sure. Yeah. Okay. And then we can maybe talk about the false flag danger in a bit more detail later. Yeah.
So I was explaining to Matt before the show last Friday. I didn't do my show live. I pre-recorded it Thursday morning. So when I recorded it, nothing had happened yet. And I was speculating there was going to be an attack. So here's a 1-minute clip or wait, did that get deleted? Or no, here it is. Suspicion that Netanyahu himself was somehow behind the October 7th attack. The list goes on. All of these things are overlapping leverage points, and every single one of those scandals limits what Netanyahu can do. When you add them all up, it pretty much puts Netanyahu on one path, and that path is to attack Iran, but he has to do it in a very, very calculated way that I think will prevent him from doing a massive overall attack. I think it's going to have to be something very, very strategic, very, very, very surgical to placate people who want to attack Iran. I mean, Netanyahu wants to attack Iran, but optically it can't look like Israel's trying to start a war with Iran. He has to basically do something to get Iran to attack him. So Iran looks like the bad guy. They look like the aggressor. He has to bait them into victimizing Israel. And that's why I think we might see a false flag. We might see them strike a very, very small area, like a single place, a single lab, whatever.
Yep.
Yeah. So
when did you deliver those remarks?
I recorded it on Thursday morning, and then it aired on Friday afternoons. But I was saying throughout the stream, I was like, by the time this airs, attack might have already happened, and it did. It happened Thursday afternoon. So the reason I share that is not to pump my own tires. It's just to say, what I was laying out, I only played a minute of it, but there's a 3-minute longer clip where I lay out all the leverage points that has been placed on Netanyahu, where all the scandals that he's facing right now, every leverage point limits his options, and he has less and less options available to him. And all of the compounding leverage pretty much puts him in one place. And that's why I came to that conclusion. It wasn't just like a wild ass guess that here's what I think is going to happen because it'll be a fun storyline. It's because he has to attack Iran, because that same day they were holding a vote in the Knesset to dissolve his government. And fortunately, he was able to negotiate a compromise with the ultra orthodox people who were going to dissolve the government because they don't want their children to be conscripted in the IDF because they weren't getting the exemption that they've been demanding. All this stuff is leverage, though. It's all leverage points, and he's responding to incentive. He's responding to these crises that are cascading over him, and it's for him to stay in power because the moment he gets out of power, he's going to be prosecuted for a number of felonies that will surely land him in prison on top of like whatever war crime stuff might come his way as a result of the past year and a half. That makes him a very easy target to manipulate, whether you're a good guy or a bad guy. It's like whatever your intent is, he becomes somebody who's very pliable and very easy to manipulate. And that also means he's very desperate. So he's basically just trying to keep his head above water as the room's filling up with water. And so he's not thinking long-term strategy. He's thinking here and now, how do I survive today so I can see tomorrow? And that's what led, in my opinion, to him doing this, which is what he did on, I think it was Sunday, him going on Fox News.
I want to talk about the nuclear threat, and I want to talk about President Trump. You just said Iran tried to assassinate President Trump twice. Do you have intel that the assassination attempts on President Trump were directly from Iran?
Through proxies, yes. Through their intel, yes. They want to kill him. Look, he's enemy number one. He's a decisive leader. He never took the path that others took to try to bargain with him in a way that is weak, giving them basically a pathway to enrich uranium, which means a pathway to the bomb, padding it with billions and billions of dollars. He took up this fake agreement and basically tore it up. He killed Qasem Soleimani. He made it very clear, including now, you cannot have a nuclear weapon, which means you cannot enrich. He's been very forceful. So for them, he's enemy number one.
Yeah.
Look, they also tried to kill me, but I'm his junior partner. They understand that President Trump is a great threat to Iran's plans to weaponize nuclear weapons and use them.
When did you tell President Trump you were going to launch these strikes?
Look, I've been in constant contact with President Trump. We've known each other for many years. And obviously, we informed our American friends and President Trump, our great friend, ahead of time. We did. He knew about it, of course.
I mean, there were reports that President Trump kind of helped you achieve your strategic surprise by publicly urging you not to attack when he already knew you had decided to do it. So you were closely coordinating with the U.S. throughout this process.
Look, we're fully coordinated, but understand that America, under President Trump, will make the decisions that are best for America. And that's the way it is. He understands that I, as the Prime Minister of Israel, the one and only Jewish state, must make the decisions that are important for the survival of my country, and he will do what is best for America. That is a relationship of mutual respect and mutual confidence.
Okay, that was fascinating listening to that because it's okay. So number one, either it's true what he's saying that he's the junior partner of Trump and they're like joined at the hip, or what appears to me, listening to that he's really overexerting himself to try to impose himself into the Trump camp. And it's really, I think his messaging seems to be really designed to like hypnotically target the conservative Americans who would be typically pro-Trump. That's his primary audience, right?
Yep.
To make it appear and hypnotize them into thinking that that Trump and him are like two sides of the same thing with the same enemies. And there's just so many layers saying that he pretty much said that he has no evidence that Iran is behind any attempts to kill Trump. When he was pressed a little bit, like, what evidence do you have? Clearly, he had no evidence. Yeah, all he could say is easy, oh yeah, through proxies. Sure. Did Trump even know about this attack? He's like, well, Trump has confidence that I'm going to do whatever decisions are needed to keep my country safe. Okay, so basically you're saying no. And then I liked how the host even threw out. So you're saying when he was calling on you not to, you mean he was helping you, is what you're saying. Which got Netanyahu a little uncomfortable with that because it pretty much it reminded the viewers that Trump was telling Netanyahu not to do it. So that's interesting how that I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah. So, I think you're right about a lot of that. I think the way that I interpret this, and this is what I'm seeing, is that what he's doing right there is he's doing two things. He is by calling himself Trump's junior partner, he's putting, well, first he starts with the whole Iran's the one who tried to kill Trump. So that's the fear mongering that gets people afraid and people's ears perk up. Oh, here's a world leader saying, here's the leader of Israel saying that Iran tried to kill Trump. I better listen to him. And then he says, I'm Trump's junior partner, which is basically saying Trump's the one in charge. He's trying to position the public narrative that Trump's the one running point on all of this, which I think a lot of people who are Trump supporters agree that Trump is totally in charge when it comes to anything that America is going to be involved with. But I think the deception is that America was somehow, or Trump was somehow involved in this attack. My understanding of the sequence of events is that they called the State Department an hour before the launch, and then the State Department, or Trump and them, the White House, called the Arab partners like minutes before, within the hour of the attack. And the Arab partners, like at that point, they were just trying to play catch up and trying to figure out what was going on. So but really what he says that's the most important is he then goes on to explain that Steve Witkoff and Donald Trump have been working for Netanyahu the whole time. They are his puppets. They are his pawns on his chessboard, and everything that they've been doing over the past 6 months to like create world peace has been a ruse, with the ultimate design being what happened on Thursday with this attack. And so I think what he's doing there is he's trying to neuter Trump and Steve Witkoff and their ability to establish peace and bilateral like negotiations and conversations with countries, because now moving forward, anytime they sit down with anybody, that person's going to be thinking in the back of their head, well, am I being set up for regime change right now?
Yep.
And like, how can I trust this guy if if Netanyahu's the one pulling this guy's strings, Steve Witkoff, how can I trust him? By the way, Mark Levin and all of like the Mossad media people are pushing that narrative too. They've all been slandering Steve Witkoff for months now. And now they're saying that Steve Witkoff is actually Netanyahu's puppet and is doing Netanyahu's will. And you got to think that really pisses off Trump. And I can show you, this is let me pull this up.
Well, trust is key in diplomacy. I mean, if you're going to be able to build any type of solution to the multifaceted crisis with other countries who have every reason to mistrust and fear the duplicity of the United States, it takes a lot to earn the faith. And so if what you're saying, I mean, this definitely seems to be a coordinated assault on all efforts to honestly get some form of solution by saying that, no, Witkoff, whether you're Ethiopia or whether you're Mali or whether you're Jordan, who cares? Any country now is going to, if they hear and believe what Netanyahu and what these whores at Fox News are saying, they're not going to be able to have a trusting dialogue with representatives of the United States like Witkoff anymore, because it's like, what are you just buying time before you regime change and kill us? Yep. Is that really it? Yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah. And by the way, that's exactly what Donald Trump says in his 1987 book, Art of the Deal. Is he says the most important thing a negotiator can have is his reputation. He says the minute that you lose your reputation, the minute that people think that you are not honest, that you're a bad faith negotiator, you can never be like you'll never put together a meaningful deal in your life ever again, because what will happen is one of the parties involved in the deal will not trust you enough to come to the table and surrender, like compromise whatever it is that they're going to give up to get what they want, and they're not going to trust you to deliver. So he says that is the number one thing that I value is reputation, and that's why I've always tried to put deals together where everybody walks away feeling like they benefited, because that's how you make more deals in the future with similar parties. Here's an article from May 22nd from Al Jazeera. And, Al Jazeera is, Muslim Brotherhood cut out, whatever. Like, they have allegedly nefarious ties. But they're quoting here an interview with a former Netanyahu official, a former Netanyahu aide. And so it is speculating on a growing rift between Donald Trump and Netanyahu in the wake of the Middle East trip where Trump didn't go to Israel. And I want to scroll down to this part where it says, Appearing on national television earlier this month, Israeli commentator Dana Luzin put it succinctly, quote, Trump is signaling to Netanyahu, honey, I've had enough of you. I can't believe I missed this when it came out on the 22nd, but this is because they're kind of saying all the stuff that I've been speculating for a while. Here's a different person, quote, we're seeing a total breakdown of everything that might be of benefit to Israel. Mitchell Barak, an Israeli pollster and former political aide to several senior Israeli political figures, including Netanyahu, told Al Jazeera, quote, America was once our closest ally. Now we don't seem to have a seat at the table. This should be a concern to every single Israeli. Many Israelis blame Netanyahu for this, Barak continued. He always presented Trump as somehow being in his pocket, and it's pretty clear Trump didn't like that. Netanyahu crossed a line. So even like Israeli commentators who are former Netanyahu aides are recognizing that that's how Netanyahu operates. He's very disrespectful. He has a huge ego. He tries to act like he's the guy in charge. And obviously all that rubs a guy like Donald Trump the wrong way. Donald Trump's not going to appreciate going down in history as Bibi Netanyahu's bitch, right? Mm-hmm. Even if he is, if that were true, Trump doesn't want that to be the official narrative. So if that were true, that would then all of a sudden, if Netanyahu is communicating that now publicly on Bret Baier, that now gives Trump incentive to double cross Bibi Netanyahu. Although I don't think that was ever the dynamic between them. I don't think it was ever that Trump was working for Netanyahu, although that is the widespread speculation at this point, even among Donald Trump's very close friends and supporters. They're now publicly lamenting that it seems like Trump has been somehow compromised, or he's been bought off, or he is, working for the Israelis. But I don't see that, and I don't think that's what's going to happen. So.
What do you think about one data point to corroborate at least an element of what you're saying? And again, I'm on the fence. If Trump, we'll see what happens. I mean, my policy is there's so much contradictory messaging as a matter of policy coming out of Trump that I reserve judgment until I see action. That's for me. So if I start seeing that there's like all of a sudden an announcement that Trump makes with full military support of Israel on this oncoming in its desire to have a war with Iran, I will judge accordingly. Right now, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to wait to see what happens because I've seen this before. Like here just last year, the first term, people were freaking out by Trump making certain statements pertaining to Korea. Fire and fury being unleashed onto North Korea if it continues to threaten the USA. And just to remind people what he was saying, that was kind of jarring and startling, and people were wondering, are we going to see a U.S. attack on North Korea? Well, this is what, and we all know what happened, but here's what Trump was actually saying.
Korea best not make any more threats to the United States. They will be met with fire and fury like the world has never seen. He has been very threatening beyond a normal statement. And as I said, they will be met with fire, fury, and frankly, power, the likes of which this world has never seen before. Thank you. Thank you.
Useful reminder, because it's like, what happens? Yeah, that's worth going back to, right? Just to be reminded of what we've seen as the method behind some of the madness. And a very short amount of time thereafter, they're having like chicken nuggets together. There's a brokering of South and North Korea. All of a sudden, the excuse to have U.S. military systems set up in South Korea, like the THAAD missile launchers, is no longer there. It's taken a lot of the wind out of the sails of the neocon warhawks that were trying to build up their military infrastructure in the Pacific around China and Russia, with the excuse that North Korea is such a scary threat. We need to do it. So is that what's possibly again being utilized behind the scenes? I hope so. I know that the other thing more recently, this little image from the G7 leaders statement that just happened in Alberta this week. So, the G7, Russia got kicked out back in 2014. But they put together a collective statement condemning, basically, we, the leaders of the G7, reiterate our commitment to peace and stability in the Middle East. Oh, yeah, good for you guys. In this context, we affirm that Israel has the right to defend itself. We iterate our support for the security of Israel. And Iran is the principal source of regional instability and terror. So this is a collective statement written by the participating members that was all signed, except for one country that didn't support this, which was the United States. Trump did not endorse this statement last time I checked, which is interesting that would be the case, considering he's used a lot of belligerent language, seemingly projecting the idea that he supports Israel and is condemning, is giving a warning of fire and fury falling upon Iran. We'll see. Again, if he does it, I will judge him very harshly for it. So far, I'm hoping that this other evidence shows a different picture of what's being sort of set. And we know also that Russia is continuously doing two things. Number one, trying to reassert, and, I was a bit demoralized because, on, what was it, June 9th, Russia had made a wonderfully brilliant proposition to process all of the enriched fuel from Iran and then give it back to the Iranians as civilian reactor fuel for free, which is a wonderful way to keep these negotiations that were going on for 2 months between Witkoff and the Iranians, to keep that alive and to move forward. Great idea. And on top of that, to add a icing to the cake, Russia signed a deal with Iran coming out of their 25-year strategic partnership agreement that was just ratified by the Iranian parliament in March of this year, basically saying that the Russians will help build and finance entirely 8 nuclear reactors for Iran. That was on June 12th. So right before Israel launches this fanatical assault. These are great ideas. And then they were re-offered. I was a little sad because I thought that was that's over. That seemed to me like a workable pathway out of it, with Russia as the secret sauce to make all of this work. But then just 48 hours ago, Russia reiterated its offer to salvage these negotiations and to continuously, it restated the whole thing. And on top of that, you got Lavrov, followed by the Russian ambassador to the UN, who both in tandem, days apart, called out not the USA for its complicity in destroying peace agreements, whether it's between Ukraine and Russia or between the US and Iran, but rather British intelligence. And Lavrov began it by stating that all information posits that, or shows the Russians, that British intelligence were behind Operation Spiderweb, behind a variety of things, including some upcoming false flags that will likely be prepped in the Black Sea. In fact, Andrew Kribko recently just put out a Substack that was pretty decent, going through, it's called "The Brits and Ukrainians Are Plotting to Manipulate Trump into Escalating Against Russia." And Kribko talks about 2 false flag scenarios are being cooked up in the Baltic Sea. Not Black Sea, sorry, Baltic Sea, to end this, according to Russian spies. And he just goes through very, very concisely the evidence that people like Putin's senior aide Patrushev has shared pertaining to this. There's apparently going to be Soviet-era weapons that will be used in the Baltic Sea, he says here, as one scenario to, Russia's Foreign Intelligence Agency warned that the Brits and Ukrainians are preparing 2 false flag scenarios in the Baltic. The first one would see Ukrainian-transferred Soviet-Russian torpedoes explode near a U.S. ship and suddenly malfunction. The malfunctioning one will then be found to implicate Russia in the alleged attack. The second will involve Ukrainian-transferred Soviet-Russian mines fished out from the Baltic Sea and presented as proof of a Kremlin plot to sabotage international shipping. That's 2 statements. The third that was brought to my attention as well is Ray McGovern, the former CIA analyst who briefed many presidents and founded Veterans Intelligence Professionals for Sanity. He put out an alert, and on his website, he's got more details on this, warning, in his view, of a high likelihood that the USS Nimitz, which is one of the oldest aircraft carriers in the U.S. fleet, which is now being sent to the Middle East, will be attacked, not, as he says, not by Iran, but by Israel with a false flag, blaming Iran. And then he's basically calling on people to remember the USS Liberty from 1967, which was also attacked by the Israelis, killing over 100 U.S. soldiers on the, or Navy personnel on the USS Liberty back during the Six-Day War. So you got all of these factors that sort of echo into what Pompeo was warning about, but it won't be Iran. It won't be Russia. It won't be China behind any of these things. It would be something more along the lines of, you know, who has the greatest power and capacity of cyber attacks in the world. Well, one of those top players happens to be Israel, which, this is from 2021, led a 10-country simulation of major cyber attacks. Their Unit 8100 is proficient, as well as this other unit set. What is it? 7200 from the that's tied to the Five Eyes. Are very, very proficient in carrying out cyber attacks. They've done many attacks onto Iran. Probably one of the more recent ones was when Iran was induced to shoot down a passenger jet, which went very close to forcing a war between the U.S. and Iran back in January of 2020, when it appears, all evidence has shown that it appears cyber attackers made the radar systems in Iran perceive an incoming missile, which they shot down, only to discover in horror afterwards that it was a Ukrainian-owned passenger jet, killing everyone on board and potentially creating catastrophe. So this is, again, it had all of the trappings of Israel. I don't know 100% that it was purely Israel, but it definitely had a lot of the signatures. And Iran apologized and tried to pull. I mean, they were very classy and sophisticated in how they chose to navigate that, because it nearly did result in World War III 5 years ago. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on right now, and just on those levels. I don't know if you have any thoughts pertaining to the false flag dangers.
Yeah, all that is accurate. What we're going to see happen here is we're going to see the Ukraine-Russia war is now going to move into the Middle East, and it's going to be Putin and Iran against Israel and NATO. That's something I've been saying for whatever year and a half. Just to address some of the things you said, because like I was taking notes and everything you said was spot on. Here is Stars and Stripes article from September 12th, 2024. Navy issues contract to begin USS Nimitz retirement. It's scheduled to be decommissioned in May of 26. So 11 months from now, it's scheduled to be physically removed from the ocean. Okay. So the speculation that they're going to sink the Nimitz there, that would be some of the strongest supporting argument, is that it's already scheduled for decommission. So from a you know, if you're somebody, a black hat at the Pentagon who is looking at how we position ourselves to fight a war, but then also maintain dominance, you're losing the ship anyway in 11 months. So sinking it now, like, who cares, right? That would be the supporting evidence. Going back to your comments about fire and fury and Trump and North Korea, I always use that example when I'm debating people about this. The people who don't want to think critically and they only want to respond to the surface level narratives they're being fed, and they want to accuse Donald Trump of being a Zionist puppet. This is from May 24th, 2018. And Donald Trump cancels North Korea nuclear summit. He goes on to basically call Kim Jong-un fat and stupid, and says that he's just been very hostile, and I don't think we're gonna get along. He writes, this is a Donald Trump post. He said, in a formal letter to Kim released by the White House, Trump said he had been very much looking forward to meeting the North Korean leader, but he wrote, sadly, based on the tremendous anger and open hostility displayed in your most recent statement, I feel it is inappropriate at this time to have this long-planned meeting. Trump declared that the meeting would not take place for the good of both parties and to the detriment of the world. And so Yeah. So basically, he's like, screw Kim Jong Un. Little rocket man. He's fat and stupid. Never liked him anyway. Kick rocks. Right. That's May 24th, 2018. You fast forward 3 weeks. 3 weeks. And you get to, June 12th, 2018, and you get this iconic moment where there's a Singapore summit where all of a sudden the world wakes up and Donald Trump's in Singapore meeting with Kim Jong-un, and this historic moment happens, and Kim Jong-un smiles for the first time ever in a photograph with a foreign leader. And then, of course, a year later, Donald Trump in 2019 goes to North Korea and is escorted personally across the DMZ by Kim Jong-un. The point being is that Donald Trump plays his cards very close to his chest, and when it looks like he's going to zig, he always zags every single time. Same thing with the Arabs with the whole Muslim ban in 2016, and then turned around and went to Saudi Arabia and got the sword dance. This is what he does, bait and switch all the time with narratives. And I think a lot of it is about getting the media worked up in one direction and then rug pulling them. And, it exposes a lot of the liars that are in the information battle space. The other thing that I was going to point to was, okay, so Russia, the whole Russia nuclear or Russia-Iran thing. What's happening right now is I will also point to the Khomeini thing with Netanyahu threatening Khomeini and saying that we're going to kill Khomeini, right? Because you have this story that says Trump is said to have vetoed the Khomeini assassination. They went to Trump on Friday and said, we want to kill Khomeini. We have a window to do it. Let's do it. And Trump said, no, we're not going to do that. We're not doing a full regime change. So do not do that. And so he vetoed that. And then Netanyahu still, dude, for some reason, it's telling me that I'm not allowed to access the Times of Israel. That is, all right, here it is for some reason. Okay. Netanyahu says Israel still won't rule out killing Khomeini. It would end the conflict. So even after Trump says we're not doing it, he still goes out publicly and says, you know what? I think we are still going to do it. And now Trump has come out and put that cryptic Truth Social post out, acting like maybe it's his idea. My read on this, though, is I think Netanyahu, again, is baiting Trump because he wants Trump to think that if you don't get involved and put yourself at the head of the host of this army, of this war, then I'm going to be in control, and I'm a much more of a loose cannon than you are, and I'm going to do something that maybe we can't walk back. If you're in charge and you're running point, Donald Trump, and I'm the junior partner, you can stay the hand that might pull the lever that kills Khomeini. So you should get involved, and you should be the one running point. And I think this is all bait. You then also have Katz, Israel Katz, the defense minister, saying Khomeini will end up like Saddam Hussein. That's a really funny phrasing because a year ago at the UN, when Katz was the foreign minister, he said the exact same thing to Erdogan to his face. He said, Erdogan, you better watch your mouth or you may end up like Saddam Hussein. So this dude is this guy is also a loose cannon. Now he's in charge of the IDF, but he's a loose cannon who, just openly threatens world leaders and openly threatens to kill world leaders. Total psychopath. Mm-hmm. Pivoting to Russia. This is from a few days ago. Trump is open to Putin as Iran-Israel mediator. There was a phone call on Sunday. This is Trump's quote, is what he told ABC. He said, yeah, I would be open to it. He is ready. He called me about it. Trump responded to ABC News's Rachel Scott when asked about Putin's potential role in brokering peace. Quote, we had a long talk about it. We talked about this more than his situation, Ukraine. This is something I believe is going to get resolved. Trump added, after the phone call, the Kremlin later said that Putin had condemned Israel's strikes on Iran and expressed concern over further escalation while reiterating Russia's willingness to facilitate negotiations. You then have Trump reinforcing that the next day by saying, or later that day, by saying Russia should be in the G8. He left the G7 early, and he says Russia should be in the G8. Why did y'all kick Russia out in 2014? Why did Barack Obama and John Kerry kick Russia and Putin out of the G8 and make it the G7? It should be the G8. You then have Israel coming out and saying that it will not support. Where did it go? That it's not going to support Russia being involved. That they have no interest in a Russian mediation, which is Netanyahu signaling that. Let me see, Israel, Russia. Sorry, I thought I had this one pulled up. Israel. Here it is. Israel uninterested in Russian mediation of conflict with Iran. This is what the Kremlin's saying. Spokesman Dmitry Peskov has sounded the alarm over galloping escalation. And let's see. Following the strikes, Putin held separate phone calls with Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to discuss options for de-escalation. Later, Trump held a phone call with Putin, which also revolved around the Middle East conflict, saying he was open to his Russian counterpart. It says President Putin said that Russia will be ready to provide such mediation services. Peskov told reporters on Tuesday, at present, we see reluctance, at least on the part of Israel, to seek any kind of mediating services or to move onto a peace track.
Yeah.
And then two more. Moscow, the Kremlin is now saying Israel is risking nuclear catastrophe. Like they're blaming Israel, saying this is all Israel's fault. They're the ones who are the war criminals here. They're calling this a war crime. They're saying that Israel violated all international law when it attacked Iran. It was totally unprovoked. Netanyahu, by the way, admitted that on Bret Baier. He said that we're 13 or 14 months away from getting a nuclear war. That's what he said. And yet no one at the State Department will say that. And then finally, world is on the brink of a new arms race. This is a report out of Stockholm, and it says Israel is among the nations believed to be modernizing its nuclear arsenal. Okay, and that brings up the critical point. Why does Israel, which has never signed a single nuclear treaty with any country in the world, they're the only country, by the way, that I think has that distinction. I think there's 4 countries that are like on the shit list in terms of these nuclear treaties. I'm pretty sure the other 3 countries are all like making moves to join the nuclear treaty so that they can get access to nuclear power, like civilian nuclear power. Israel's the only one that isn't even lifting a finger, like moving in the direction of signing any of these treaties. Why do they have a nuclear arsenal? That needs to be totally adjudicated. Let's stop talking about Iran for a minute. Why does Israel have nuclear weapons? And the fact that we're not talking about that is enraging. It makes me despise the Republican Party. It makes me despise the people working in Trump's cabinet that, they're doing what Trump asked them to do, and Trump's playing a narrative warfare game. I get all that. But the fact that these people are such vicious liars about the state of like the world and like reality, and the fact that they won't talk about the USS Liberty, they won't talk about the fact that that Israel has nukes, the very thing that it accuses Iran of doing, it's actually doing. And we aren't allowed to talk about it? No. Sorry.
Yeah, it's pure Freudian projection. It's quite the Delphic sleight of hand.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. Absolutely. No, that's really important stuff.
I'm with you though that I don't support anything like escalating war with Iran. If the US tomorrow starts launching missiles at Iran, like I'm out. Like sorry guys, but I don't support any of that stuff. I don't think that's going to happen. Yeah. I think that Trump is feigning all this stuff, and he's putting out a lot of aggressive rhetoric, knowing, as he has said many, many times before he became president, politicians are never held accountable for what they say. You can say whatever you want and then go out and get reelected, and like you'll never be held accountable for it. So I think he's doing a lot of that stuff, and I think it's manipulating the behavior of other people to their own detriment. But yeah.
Yeah. Well, before we go to the next commercial, and maybe we'll do that first. So I will want us to talk a little bit before we go to the dialogue with the audience. If there are any questions or thoughts that people have put out there that are worthwhile, we can do that. But I will want to talk about the color revolutionary tactics in Iran, and especially Pahlavi, the so-called crown prince who's being put onto the playing field right now. I'm gonna play a little clip of his recent announcement calling on Iranians to rise up and overthrow the mullahs and bring in democracy, which means a monarchy under his control as the democracy that he somehow believes in. I'm gonna play that, but before we do that, I'm gonna first play the commercial from the second sponsor for today's show. I'm just gonna pull it up here, and it is Loaded Gun Coffee. So here we go. Okay, here we are. A little slow on my end, sorry. Wake up to the bold flavors of Loaded Gun Coffee, where passion, precision, and patriotism infuse every sip. As a veteran-owned business, we ensure each cup is steeped in pride and unwavering commitment. Their roasters handpick the finest coffee beans from around the world and have mastered unique brewing methods. Their skilled farmers cultivate the coffee to embody the essence of duty and honor in every meticulously crafted blend. But it's more than just coffee. It's a family's enduring commitment to freedom, with military veterans tracing their legacy back to the Civil War, including Purple Heart recipients. Loaded Gun Coffee is brewed testament of pride and honor. Dedicated to preserving the integrity and strength of our beloved nation, they proudly stand as fierce advocates for a secure border and strong America. And stay loaded. Stay loaded, Badlanders, with Loaded Gun Coffee. Visit badlandsmedia.tv/loaded and enter promo code Badlands for 10% off your purchase. That's badlandsmedia.tv/loaded, promo code Badlands. Right. So there we go.
Real quick, before we continue, I just want to address a comment. I just saw it in the chat, and
do it.
I don't want to pick on this person, so But this is commentary that I've seen on all the streams I was doing yesterday. Is people are saying Russia is pulling away from Iran. Russia's pulling away from Iran. That is not true. That is Fox News, fake news, false bullshit narrative. I'm sitting here looking at the Kremlin wire right now. Here's the most recent deployment from the Kremlin, from TASS, Russian news agency. This is basically like Russian state media right here. That is the most like aligned with Putin. This is their most recent story. Putin confirms Russia ready to mediate Middle East conflict. According to the statement, Russia is inclined to promote dialogue between the parties in the conflict. Okay, so Russia is not pulling away from Iran. It has signed very, very significant security agreements that it finalized in January 19th, the day before Trump took office. If it backs down from those security agreements and doesn't fulfill them, it loses all like legitimacy on the world stage. It loses all of the this is the, I don't know if I'll share my screen or not, but this is the article I was referring to. It loses all legitimacy if Putin doesn't follow through on the security agreements and like everything that he signed with Iran. He has to back them. He has no choice but to back them, even if he doesn't want to. But I think he does. So all of those narratives that are out there, which I've seen, are absolute like bold-faced lies. You are being lied to by so people happy that you're being lied to.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I mean, it's pissing me off too, like how full spectrum and loud all of this misinformation is that's being spread by intelligence agencies masquerading as media. They did the same thing. There was like a recent briefing given, or what was it? It was like an FBI report that was just released documenting how there's evidence that Russia doesn't trust China and is getting ready to cut cords with China and go solo or with the United States and will backstab Iran. That again, they're just circulating made up stuff left and right as
totally
part
made
of the
up
noise.
Totally made up.
Yeah.
The number of agreements that China and Russia have signed in the past 12 months, it's like every 3 weeks we've gotten a new, because I like study this stuff meticulously to write the news brief. We've gotten every 3 weeks, there's been like a new like blossoming bromance between China and Russia where they're like just reminding everybody how much they love each other and how they're signing all these new agreements. And then Fox News comes out and says Russia and China are having marital problems. It's totally made up bullshit. Like they're just making things up. And it's like, that is not at all what the Kremlin and Beijing are saying at all. It's the total opposite.
Yep. Agreed. Yeah. People need to stay really strong. And I mean, it helps if you know what are the policies, the long-term strategies that are being deployed by the leadership of Russia, China, Iran, their broader allies. If you're aware of those things and have it mapped out in the mind, then it's easy to sort of like judge where is the misinformation, what doesn't map onto the reality exists. And for like one thing, we know that the international north-south transportation corridor is one of the highest priorities of Russia and Iran. That goes back over 20 years, which is like a major set of trade corridors and rail. It's a multimodal system stretching from Russia's Arctic all the way down through both sides of the Caspian Sea into Iran, into the ports of Bandar Abbas and Chabahar in the south. That will then and already are transporting goods from India and back onward. That also interfaces with Pakistan in a way that's pissing off some Indians, but it's very interesting. But it's high value for the Russians and the Iranians. So high value, people don't even realize it. It's like it's a complement to the Belt and Road Initiative, which is conventionally east and west. But they're both two harmonious things that work together, and neither one would. Iran needs to stay as a viable country. It has to be protected as a viable country for any of these existential projects to work. If Iran is lit on fire, it is unacceptable the level of danger that the Russians and the Chinese will be put into. So, I mean, people need to just realize that they're being lied to about disputes and gossipy, drama between Eurasian powers.
And by the way, like, I'm not discouraging people from like bringing these points up. Like, well, hey, I saw that it's being reported that Russia's pulling away from Iran. We should be talking about this. We should be calling out the liars, and we should be, engaging with all the narratives, even the fake ones, because that's how you learn and that's how you understand. All right, this is where I heard that. That means that person is a liar, or that person is at least is not exercising discernment before they relay information, whether it's Fox News or some influencer on X. But to Matt's point, these are the maps of what he's describing. Where's the
I don't know how you keep track of content on your infinite desk there.
Well, I'm always like moving it around for presentations. I'm like shifting it, and so that's what screws me up is when I shift it, and then I'm like I should just copy paste it. But once I started doing that, then I have like 5 copies of the same thing, and it's down here. But anyway, here it is.
Someday maybe we'll get neural net, and we'll just have to think about the thing, and it'll show up.
Yeah, and you'll just think about it. So geographically speaking, literally, Iran is the bridge between Asia and Europe. It's Iran and it's Turkey. Because you have these 4 seas. You have the Black Sea and the Mediterranean that box in Turkey, and then you have the Caspian Sea and the Arabian Sea, the Persian Gulf, as it was formerly called, boxing in Iran. So that bridge right there, that land bridge, is how you get from Asia to Europe. And there are so many pipelines now and railroads that run and trade routes that run not only east and west, but north and south through Iran. So just from a purely like selfish standpoint, if all Putin cares about is preserving Russia, he has to make sure that Iran doesn't get lit on fire, to your point, Matt, because if it does, then this entire like the trade highway that is Iran gets shut down. Or it falls into the hands of the West. It falls into the hands of bad actors who are going to blow it up.
Yeah, and the same thing for China, which desperately does need natural gas and oil from a lot of these Middle Eastern countries. If Iran is allowed to burn, that really puts them in a very precarious position. The stability of Iran is such a high priority for the Chinese as well as the Russians. It's unbelievable. So yeah, very, very. But that being said, so that falls into the question of color revolution that we began with. So, the whole Soros, Bibi gang, counter gang, controlled opposition thingamajig. And here's a little speech delivered for, I guess, Iranians by the nominal crown prince, who was ousted when his father was ousted in 1979. And he's been sort of an asset for the CIA ever since. And here he is.
دستگاه سرکوب رژیم در حال فروپاشی است. تنها یک خیزش همگانی لازم است تا این کابوس برای همیشه پایان یابد. اکنون زمان ایستادن است. زمان بازپسگیری ایران. همه با هم از بندر عباس تا بندر انزلی، از شیراز تا اصفهان از
I realize many people are probably just listening to our show and they're not watching or reading the captions. But basically, here's this schmuck calling on from Bandar Abbas to Tehran and everywhere to rise up and overthrow the tyranny of the Iranian regime. During this existential onslaught that's underway, and what do you think? Do you think that this is a real threat, or are the Iranians not falling for? I mean, we know that Soros tried a color revolution in 2009 in Iran called the Green Revolution, using all the techniques that we've seen in Georgia and Ukraine, except it didn't really work. It didn't last very long, but they didn't go away. They didn't stop trying. And we know that Elon Musk has offered his Starlink satellite system to also be used to help the democracy movement in Iran overthrow the regime. That's a dangerous thing that's sort of been announced. So what do you think of that?
Yeah, I think that's like a CIA.
Gordon, I can't hear you.
Can the audience hear me?
No, I can't hear you for some reason. Is it just
audience? Let me know if you can hear me or if it's just on Matt's
end. Is that me?
Wait, I'm standing by to get feedback from the audience.
Okay, let's look at. I'm going to look at the comments. Can people hear Gordon, or is it just me who cannot hear Gordon?
All right, I think they're saying that they can hear me.
Okay, so Lily just responded with a yes. You can hear Gordon. Oh, yeah. You can hear Ghost. Can you hear? And you can hear me.
We can hear you. Yeah, we can hear you.
The audience can hear me, and they can hear you, but I cannot hear you.
Yes.
Oh, that's weird.
It's your audio.
Oh, okay. I'm going to put in these earbuds. I'm going to put in these earbuds.
Maybe. Does that work?
Speak again.
Can you hear me?
No, it's not working.
Huh.
Oh, that's so weird.
Workshop that, and
no, I can't read lips. Okay, you just talk, Gordon. I'm gonna be quiet. It's all you.
So the Shah, the Shah was, I think it's like a CIA color revolution plan. The Shah, the guy who's talking in that video is the son of the Shah. The Shah was installed in 1953 to get rid of Mogaddesh. Mogaddesh ran on a platform to become president of Iran that he was going to nationalize the oil. And so he wins the presidency. He nationalizes the oil. The CIA greenlights Eisenhower greenlights a CIA plan to overthrow Mogaddesh and install the Shah. So they do that. They install the Shah. They immediately sign this thing called the Consortium Agreement. It's a 25-year agreement that says this nationalized oil, which is down in like southwestern Iran, that traditionally belonged to the British. The British took control of it in 1914 when they formed British Petroleum. We're going to give it back to the British. So they give the consortium agreement gives the oil back to the British. It only is for 25 years, so it has to be renewed. When the consortium agreement comes back for renewal in 1979, the Shah says, I'm not renewing the deal. And the reasons he gives primarily are, what's happening with Israel, what's happening with the Yom Kippur War. He doesn't like how basically the West is destabilizing the Middle East for the benefit of Israel, right? That's what, in my opinion, I don't know this for a fact, but in my opinion, that's why one of the biggest reasons they did the Iranian Revolution was that he wasn't going to renew the consortium agreement, which means the British would have lost all the access to the oil in southwestern Iran, and so they overthrew him. And whether they actually maintained that oil, I think they may have lost it anyway. But at least now they have a boogeyman that in the Ayatollah they can use as like they radicalized Iran, and then the radicalization of Iran led to the radicalization of Saudi Arabia as both cultures vied for political influence over the Middle East, trying to prove to the public which regime was the most orthodox Islam, like which one was the most pure form of Islam. And so that's when they started shutting down all the movie theaters, shutting down the cafes, saying women can't speak to men, women can't do anything. Sharia law basically just everywhere. And MBS has pointed to that so many times, where he says 1979 was a fulcrum year where basically the Middle East was just thrown off the cliff into the darkness of radicalization, and it was all done by the CIA and like Western intelligence agencies.
it's similar in technique in so many ways to what was done to get the Protestants and the Catholics to kill each other for a few centuries, especially throughout the bloodiest period of the 30 Years' War, which involved the Jesuits taking control of the Spanish Habsburg Catholic Church, or, that expression of Catholicism, as well as within the Vatican. So you had the Jesuits who turned the church into this rigid, tyrannical, ultra-Orthodox machinery through the Council of Trent, the counter-revolution, on the one hand, and that type of stifling rigidity and orthodoxy, which created like indices of banned books. So there's a whole plethora of different kinds of books that were all of a sudden now seen as heretical. Some actually bad books, but other books that were just simply philosophical books that weren't bad at all. And people's lives were ruined. The Inquisition increased its power and influence, so people were burned at the stake. In some cases, they were real witches. In many cases, they were innocent people who were just like burned for just saying the wrong thing or being herbalists, So you had that, and then that gave fuel to the fires of the more reactionary Lutherans and others who would go to the opposite extreme of rigidity and like rebelliousness, which fell into the trap of then doing all sorts of heinous acts to Catholics, and Catholics would then do heinous acts to Protestants. And it was just these small factions who infiltrated both gang counter gang operations, where most people were victims in between. They just wanted to live in harmony with their fellow neighbors, whether they were Catholic or Protestant, it didn't matter. They were human first. But they were able to create these forever wars at that time. And it's very similar as far as what I could see as a formula being used to extremify the Sunni and then extremify the Shia radicals in both camps to then create a formula for a forever conflict. So very, very disgusting. I got a question for you. Huma Abedin just married George Soros's kid.
Yeah.
Does she have any connection to the Iranian, whether it's the Savak carryovers that were never fully dismantled after the Shah was ousted? Because the Shah had his whole secret police apparatus, the Savak, which they were trained by unreconstructed Nazis as part of Operation Gladio. There were good people in there, but there were a lot of really bad elements that did Operation Condor style torture, murder, disappearing acts for anybody challenging or seen as disruptive. So the Savak leadership, I don't think they fully disappeared. I think they were absorbed into the CIA, into the broader global deep state after 1979. And I'm curious if you've picked up on Huma Abedin's background as being involved in any of that.
Yeah, it's an interesting thought. I mean, her going from Anthony Weiner, being married to Anthony Weiner, who I think was at a time being groomed to become president. I think he was going to be. I mean, that's the circumspection that I've seen pretty widespread, is that he was being groomed to become something of importance. Like whether he was the president or somebody in that orbit, that's what it seemed like it was. And the speculation has been is that Huma Abedin was his handler. At the same time, she's the assistant, the aide to Hillary Clinton, who is the Secretary of State and is one of the most powerful people in American politics, and is being literally groomed to become president in 2016. So the speculation has long been that Huma Abedin was Hillary's handler, right? Whether or not that's true, I don't know. But there's certainly, I just went to ChatGPT and just asked, what are the origins of the allegations that Huma Abedin is connected to the Muslim Brotherhood? And what it spits out is, this paragraph about how this is all right-wing conspiracy theory. So, you kind of have to dismiss that with a grain of salt. But it says that in 2012, 5 Republican members of Congress, including Michelle Bachmann, sent letters to the State Department and others alleging Muslim Brotherhood infiltration of the U.S. government. They cited Huma Abedin as someone who should be investigated because of her family connections, particularly her late father, mother, and brother. These claims are based on a document by the Center for Security Policy led by Frank Gaffney, a far-right think tank known for promoting anti-Muslim conspiracy theories. And then it says specific connections. Her father, Saeed Zainul Abedin, ran an Islamic think tank in Saudi Arabia, and edited a journal that once had a Muslim Brotherhood affiliated several scholars as contributors. Her mother, Saleha Abedin, is a professor in Saudi Arabia and was involved in women's issues through Islamic groups, some of which had ideological overlaps with Brotherhood-linked thought. Claims that she worked with the Institute of Muslim Minority Affairs, which critics said had links to Islamist ideology. None of these points prove any operational or ideological link between Huma herself and the Brotherhood. I would argue that the real connection between her and the Brotherhood is through Hillary Clinton, but that's fine. Yeah. So they're saying that her parents, I guess, are employed in Saudi or were employed in Saudi Arabia, despite the fact that one of them was Indian and one of them was Pakistani. So they're not Saudi. They're not Saudi. That's not like their ethnic background. Their ethnic background is Indian and Pakistani.
Indian. Huh.
Yeah. She was born in Michigan, but then grew up in Saudi Arabia and then came back to America for college. I'm just reading like the bullet points for her biography right here. But yeah, I mean, do I think it's a coincidence that she went from being Hillary Clinton's aide while she was Secretary of State and while she was becoming the president? She was supposed to become president in 2016, and at the same time was married to a guy who seemed to have been like in the wings of in the future becoming the president or somebody of political importance. And then she goes from that to like those two ships both burn and sink, right? I mean, both of those characters are just totally destroyed reputation wise. She somehow swims away from both of those shipwrecks and then gets on with Soros's kid. And now she's marrying this little bug-eyed dweeb who, I mean, very unimpressive person outside of the fact of, who sired him. Like what exactly has he accomplished? And I mean, Soros, say what you want about his dad, but his dad has proven himself to be a competent operator, right? I mean, how many governments has he overthrown? How many markets has he manipulated? How many people has he killed? You have to at least acknowledge that he's capable. Can his kid do any of that? I have no idea. It feels like he is being handled by Huma Abedin because he's not somebody that the cabal or whatever is going to trust to go out there and do what his dad was doing. And I think his dad's been dead for years. I haven't seen any proof of life from George Soros in years. So I think that he's been this kid has been trotted out there as a character to familiarize the public with him so that they can eventually announce that George Soros is dead. And, oh, that's all right. We have Alex Soros and everybody loves him because he's a public figure. By the way, I saw allegations years ago, like pictures, videos, all that he is like he had boyfriends and stuff, like he's homosexual. So like this whole Huma Abedin thing is a beard, I'm pretty sure. And that would just support the notion that she's a handler and they're not really like in love with one another.
Yeah. I don't think creatures who spirit cook are capable of love. Yeah, man. No, I think we've been through a lot here today. I think this is useful to sort of just, I think, provide a little bit of order to some of the chaos, and hopefully we'll see saner heads prevail throughout this mess going into the coming week. I don't know if there's any additional thoughts you want to throw out before I just put out the little poster for Deadwood. Is there any?
Yeah. I think. What did I just see? I just saw. I think this is worth sharing. Just
okay,
because we should try to end on like a. Not that we have to end on a positive note, but the fact that why does it always?
I like happy endings. I enjoy happy endings.
Never wants to load this website, right? This TASS website. Okay, so. Oh, there you go. Oh. They just posted this on top of the one that I just shared. So this is now the most recent article posted by them. Trump says not too late to negotiate with Iran. According to U.S. President, the Iranians are in contact with the Americans. Okay, so this is from today. He says, really, nothing is too late, he told reporters at the White House when asked about the prospects of resuming U.S.-Iranian talks. According to the head of the state, the Iranians are in contact with the Americans. They even suggested that they come to the White House for talks. That would be incredible. If the the Iranian regime came to the White House and Trump hosted them there, Netanyahu's head might explode. And then the other one is this. They seem to have pulled it off the website, though. Oh, here it is. Okay. They just keep changing. They keep changing the headline. But Trump is saying that he's not going to say what he's going to. He said, nobody knows what I'm going to do. I don't know if I'm going to strike Iran. Nobody knows what I'm going to do. And frankly, nobody should speak for me. That was the quote that I saw earlier when I was pulling headlines. So anyway, I think that Trump is, this is the game that Trump plays. He comes out really hard, really aggressive, gets everyone really worked up, really upset. So everyone's talking about it, thinking about it, focused on it. And then he slowly walks back what he's doing. And this is the Gaza Riviera all over again. The Gaza Riviera, right? Actually, I don't know if we're actually going to do that. Maybe we'll just give it to the Arabs. The Arabs can figure it out. Yeah, we're just going to let the Arabs figure it out. But I know that Netanyahu and Israel is not going to be in charge. Like that was the whole point of the Riviera thing. We're doing the Riviera thing all over again. And it's he's walking back to, we're actually going to host the Iranians at the White House and we're going to figure this out. That would be the ultimate power move, because then you physically remove the Israelis from the situation. You bring the Iranians in, and then you can have a face-to-face discussion to figure out your differences. And, according to Trump, the people who were given the problems are dead now. Whether or not that's true, whether or not any of that is reliable information, it's worth noting that I'm pretty sure that the 1979 revolution was orchestrated by the CIA. And Mossad. So
there's a book called Hostage to Khomeini by Robert Dreyfus, and it's a really good book going through all of the CIA's operations behind the ouster of the Shah and the introduction of Khomeini, which is very scandalous for an Iranian to hear, but it's pretty valid. It's pretty true, even though I think that Iran broke free and went off the rails at a certain point in the 90s. It's still a fact that, I'll send you a link to that book. I think there's a free edition available on archive.org. Very, very well-researched book.
Worth noting that the hostage situation too with Jimmy Carter, like they wouldn't release the hostages, right? And then all of a sudden when Reagan and Bush, the vice president, the second they get into office, the hostages all get released, right? George Bush, who was the director of the CIA, he becomes vice president, and suddenly, this new radicalized regime is just going to release all the Americans to this new president. And then Reagan was celebrated as a hero. By the way, Trump also called out Reagan in 1987 in his book, The Art of the Deal, and said he thinks Reagan is super overrated and the greatest thing about him is his hair. So
he's a good joke teller too. He told good jokes.
That
was it. But no, that's a good point. And then we at some point, we do have to probably deal with the Iran-Contra operation that gave rise to a big chunk of the deep state in its modern incarnation. It was a huge overhaul of the deep state complex under the cover of the Iran-Contra operation. So it's on our list of things to talk about. We'll definitely go there at some point sooner than later. But yeah, Gordon, this is a very, very useful hour and a half spent. I appreciate this. Your Deadwood, got the poster here for Deadwood, the GART upcoming August 14th to 17th. And I'm not on that list. Are you coming to Deadwood? Yeah, I'm going to come to Deadwood.
Hell yeah. All right. You're breaking news right now.
I mean, you sold it to me pretty well as being super awesome. So I was...
Yeah, dude. Deadwood was awesome. It's like a cowboy town. Every single building in the town has like at least a slot machine, but if not a full blown, like card tables and everything, like casino. The whole town is just like a giant casino with like gas stations, basically.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm fascinated. Yeah. I had a fun time in Plymouth, so I'm very, very curious to see to have some good conversation and get to meet new people down there. I don't even. When's the last time a GART happened in Deadwood? It was last year, the year before that.
It was last August. So this is like it'll be like the 1 year anniversary. Sounds like John we may make this like an annual GART just because it's a place that I think holds a lot of significance for John. So it's also the Badlands. So, you know,
Right.
there's some branding alignment.
Is that
there.
literally where the term Badlands comes from?
Yeah, because
Oh.
John's from North Dakota, and like North Dakota, South Dakota are the Badlands. So that's where Badlands Media comes from.
I actually never asked that question. I feel a bit
yeah,
out of the loop. Okay, cool. Sweet. So any questions from or thoughts from the audience at all, or
yeah, let's sorry,
I'm terrible
I meant to pull,
keeping.
let me see if we got any rants. Looks like we have a few.
Yeah, I don't keep my eye out on the comments very effectively.
Trumpet, $25. Ghost, loved your special edition geopolitics. Agree with everything you said. I think it is cruel that the oil refineries in Israel are in Haifa. It's too beautiful for refineries. Sad. Cheers, Matt. Yeah, that was something I went on John Harold's new show on Friday. We pre-recorded it Thursday night, and I reminded him that, you know, 2 years ago when I first came on DPH on Badlands, and was speculating about a war between Israel and Iran, that Iran doesn't need doesn't need a nuclear warhead to harm Israel. If it wants to harm Israel, it would go after the energy infrastructure, or even the water resources, like water treatment centers, and then you would have a humanitarian crisis on your hands immediately. And so what they did is they were striking the power plant at Haifa, the deep water port where they have all their oil refineries. And so the oil refineries have all had to shut down. They aren't refining oil anymore. If they can't refine oil, they can't power the IDF war machine. And that kind of like stops the army the IDF dead in its tracks. So that strategy seems to be what they're going for. And I mean, to me, it makes sense, but it doesn't require, you know, blowing up a city or harming a bunch of civilians. You just go after the infrastructure. Mm-hmm. Let's see. The other rant is radar screener, $10, supporting my BA friend, Ghost of Base Patrick Henry. The world needs more BA Christians like you. Appreciate you, radar screener. And yeah, I was doing some rants yesterday on Badlands Daily and on my I did just like a live stream because I hadn't done any shows since the attack happened, and I was, you know, speaking to the whole Zionist Christian dynamic and how inverted it all is. I was very encouraged, by the way, to see the Tucker Carlson, Steve Bannon interview yesterday or 2 days ago. That was a good development, because the one thing that Steve Bannon's never done is criticize Israel, and now all of a sudden him and Tucker were doing it like all day on Tuesday. So, let's see. I just want to make sure there's no boosts. Yeah, we have Ginger in South Dakota, $15. This is my favorite show, guys. Would love to hear you two work out together for us sometime. The historical character of Alexander Hamilton, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Can Gordon summarize his points from the book of Trump on Monday for Matt? Oh yeah, well on Monday I had Ash on to talk about the regulatory state, the executive branch, and I started the show by reviewing the Federalist Paper number 67, which was the executive branch, which talked about like the army of bureaucrats that Hamilton and John Jay and them proposed to make sure that one person, the president, didn't have all the power. They would divide the power up amongst many, many bureaucrats and agencies, and we all saw the net effect of that. But that's the conversation we can have another time.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, that's it. So I think we're good. We're caught up.
Okay. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, and I'll check it out. Somebody had also suggested I watch your segment with Ash, and it's on my my playlist. So I'm gonna have a listen to and share some thoughts for sure. Okay, cool. Yeah, sweet. So that's quite a lot. I want to make a quick announcement too. I don't know how many viewers currently watching are in or near Calgary, Alberta, but if there are people, I know we have a lot of fans in Calgary, Alberta. I know that for a fact. So I'll just put this out here very quickly. I'll be in Calgary doing 2 public events, one of which is going to be here. I'm just going to do a screen share, and people can go to my Substack and get tickets for either one. The first one is on the 25th of June, and the other one's on the 29th The first one here is called The Courage to Listen. It's sponsored by the United Conservative Party, Calgary Lawfleet Center. So it's the official United Conservative Party that is the governing party of Alberta under Daniel Smith that's sponsoring The Courage to Listen, building a framework for a sovereign Alberta at 6 p.m. So that's something. If they go to that website, I'll be speaking with a lot of very, very intelligent patriots. Ben Trudeau, who's actually the cousin, the patriotic conservative cousin of Justin Trudeau, Chris Sims, Bruce Party, a high-level lawyer, and Dr. Michael Wagner, Peter McCaffrey, Mitch Sylvester, the CEO of the Alberta Prosperity Project. So that's there. It'll also be live streamed too. And the other one is going to be a presentation that I do as a bit of a town hall conference at a smaller venue, but that's going to be on Sunday. It's called, here's the image I selected, An Introduction to Occult Geopolitics, with a picture of Lord Milner, Aleister Crowley, Greater Israel as a map, the current bombing underway in Iran, and Mithra killing the bull, looking over at Helios, the solar deity, Sol Invictus. So that's going to be something that I'm going to do, and just feel a lively dialogue on the Sunday. And people can go to Eventbrite, pick up tickets there. It's like $30 a ticket. And so those are good. Yep. So if people want to come, go to either my Substack, matthewehret.substack.com, or those two websites, Eventbrite or thecouragetolisten.ca. So I'll just throw that out there.
Yeah, and then your show on Sunday, is that you and Alex Craner doing that every week, or was Alex Craner just your first guest on the first one?
Oh yeah, he was my first guest. So nice. It's a sub project of Pluralia. It's called Pluralia Dialogos, every Sunday at 11 a.m. live streamed out. So that's a brand new platform. I've been doing the peace roundtables with the American University in Moscow since September of last year, every 2 weeks, and we bring together just various guests, experts to talk about the world situation, kind of like what you and I do. And my collaborator, Dr. Edward Lazansky, passed away a few weeks back, but he's not 85 years old or so. Very, very rich life. I mean, this guy was heroic, and I mean, he nuclear physicist, working on nuclear laser fusion, and he became a Soviet dissident, left, broke free of the Soviet Union in the early 80s, and just became a champion for peace and collaboration and war avoidance ever since. So he really built up a huge reputation, and he created something called the American University in Moscow in the 90s, which kind of operated like a think tank / event promotion platform to promote U.S.-Russian friendship. And I started working with him about 6 years ago. And so we began this thing together. He passed away, unfortunately, but he had negotiated with the various people at Banco Intesa who were interested also in avoiding World War III, who had been working with Alex Craner to incorporate our projects. And so that now became Pluralia Dialogos. And so, like I said, everybody can check that out at 11 a.m. Eastern time on Sundays. Alex Craner and Colonel Karen Kwiatkowski were my first guests. Last week, we had Joaquin Flores and Garland Nixon and Martin Seif as my other guests, dealing with the war drive and the color revolution, efforts in the U.S. The next session is going to be on the 29th as well, live streamed. I'm going to have Kit Clarenberg, who Pluralia just said that they approved his attendance, and I'm going to have 2 more surprise guests as well, who I'll announce very soon, dealing with British intelligence operations behind the scenes. So that'll also be something people can tune into as well if they'd like.
Awesome. Man. Yeah. Well, congratulations on the new show. And feel free to post the link in the comments so people can check it out.
I will. Yeah. So check the comment section, folks. And subscribe to that channel. You'll be notified every time we do a broadcast.
Yeah. And thank you, MPG Stewart, for reminding me. Tomorrow at 2:00 on Badlands, I will be interviewing Jim Quast live. and it will be the topic of discussion will be reviving the hero system in Africa. That's a comment that I've heard him make many, many times, like at GART, just in passing while he's making like another point. And it's one of those things that's always piqued my interest. And so just having him on to flush out that idea and like how the hero system was intentionally destroyed in Africa. And that's what's prevented it from being able to, develop into like a real civilization. It's pretty much just lived as like a proxy plantation.
Cool. Yeah, I'll check that out. That sounds good. That's gonna be tomorrow. That it will live stream
tomorrow at 2, and then it'll be recorded, so it'll be on Badlands on the Rumble page. But yeah,
Great.
2 o'clock.
All right, we'll check it out. Thank you, Gordon. Thank you, everybody else, and looking forward to our catching up next week, same time on Badlands. Take care.
See you, man.
Thank you so much for joining us, and don't forget to hit the thumbs up on this video. And a special thank you to all of our advertising partners. Please remember to shift your dollars to support those businesses that support Badlands Media.